I'm Barry Robinson for Scarborough TV News. As you can see, yet again we're out and about. This time our journey has taken us to the famous Scarborough Castle. I want to know all about Scarborough Castle.
Right, well, where to begin with that? Well, I suppose probably the first thing to talk about would be the defences of Scarborough Castle. It's the thing that everybody gets to see when they're walking around Scarborough, so probably the best thing, really. This model that we're stood next to here actually shows you those defences pretty well, actually. You can see the curtain wall. Now that wall, when it was complete, would have gone all the way around this headland, this 16-acre site. So that would have been a monumental structure. Your mind boggles at the thought of the amount of stone, men, oxen, beer to feed them all. It really does make it go completely mental in your mind.
So who is responsible for all this, for this wonderful castle?
Well, it's a combination of monarchs over the years, actually. The keep, which we're stood next to now, that was built by Henry II in 1158, and he did that over the course of 6 years. So
and why? Why did he want a castle here at Scarborough? Well,
it's a very good point. The first castle, this is not the first castle here, but the first castle was built by William Le Gros, who was a French Norman baron who later became the Earl of York. Now, to be honest with you, he built this castle illegally. It was actually part of the thing. He owned the land, he was in charge of the land, and he built a castle here without seeking royal permission. Because round about that time, England was in the midst of a civil war called the Anarchy. At this point, King Stephen, we had a King Stephen at that time, was actually having a civil war with his cousin, the Empress Matilda of the Holy Roman Empire. She was daughter to Henry I, who was the king before Stephen, and Stephen basically usurped him. So William Le Gros was firmly on the side of King Stephen, as I understand it, and he built a castle here in case Matilda's forces came back. Now, after the Civil War, and Henry II, who was Matilda's son...
I bet he didn't go waltzing Matilda.
No, indeed he didn't. No. But he was a very good king. He was a strong king, which is what Stephen actually lacked. But when he was sorting out the peace negotiations of this civil war, he saw all these illegal castles built across the country and thought, we're not having that. So he actually destroyed a lot of them, but he took charge of key strategic castles across the country. And it's just incredibly fortunate that William Le Gros chose to build this castle on this very defendable location that was overlooking a harbour. It was critically important in case another invasion came about, but also important for trade from across the sea. So Henry II, he built his castle here, his stone keep and wall, and it was a symbolic gesture to say he is the new ruling power, you do not want to mess with me, but it was also a very military and strategic function as well, so he could guard the harbour and protect his lands, if you will, in this part of the country.
And there's always been something here, hasn't there, for thousands of years, actually on top of this headland.
Absolutely, yes. The earliest find that we have from this site dates from 2100 BC.
Is that the Beakers?
The Beaker people.
The Beakers.
Indeed. Not to be mistaken for the fan base for Beaker the Muppet. But the Beakers were a group, if you will. They had lots of ideas of how to make pottery, that kind of thing. And their ideas spread across here from the continent to Britain. Now, the find that we actually have from 2100 BC is a beaker itself. It is actually a stone cup.
Is that why they called them beakers?
Indeed, that was the key sort of art form, if you will, that they were best known for. Now, we don't actually think a beaker community was living up here because we've only found one cup. So what seems more likely to us is that either a man or woman came up here
on a picnic
and broke their favourite cup. That seems a lot more likely to us. Now, following that, around about 1500 to 1000 BC, a late Bronze Age community. This comes in the form of Bronze Age roundhouses where they lived, Bronze Age storage pits for food, and a lot of Bronze Age pottery. But probably the best find, the greatest find that we have actually found off this site comes from that period, and that is a Bronze Age sword. Now, the Bronze Age sword's about this big. I'd take it, about that big, made out of bronze metal, so it's not exactly what you call a robust weapon. You'd probably get a few good swings out of it before you dented it too much. But it would have been used by the ruling elite, because only they were really powerful and rich enough to afford such a luxurious item. Now, this sword we don't actually have here anymore. It's the one that we have on display in our exhibition room upstairs is a replica, to give you an idea what it would have looked like brand spanking new. But the real one was actually taken off us by the British Museum. It's one of the finest examples of its type, one of the best preserved as well. And you'd think, with that all being in mind, that they would have it on display. But they don't. They actually have archived it away in the bowels of the British Museum.
Well, that's clever.
It's very clever.
Very clever.
You can actually see an image of it online, though, through their website, it must be said. And we do have images in our exhibition room of what it would have looked like, you know, when the actual thing would have looked like itself, as well as in our guidebooks, too. So there are ways of being able to see this lovely sword.
OK, Elliott, let's move on and we'll go to another part of the castle.
OK, then. If you'd like to come this way.